For millennia, humanity was gone. No ships, no signals, no ruins even. Just silence where Earth once sang. The stars forgot them. The galaxy moved on. New empires rose from dust and plasma, speaking languages no human ear had ever heard. History books listed humanity as a footnote. Extinct, vanished, erased during the Great Silence 3,000 years ago. No one knew why. No one cared to look too hard. Until the ghost ship came back. It appeared near the edge of the old Sol system, drifting past the frozen corpse of Pluto like a memory given metal and light. The Cathari patrol vessel, Whisper of Dawn, was the first to spot it. At first, they thought it was space junk, another relic from a dead age. But then the sensors screamed. Energy readings spiked. The object was not dead. It was sleeping. Captain Vor of the Whisper ordered a full stop. His mandibles clicked in unease. The Cathari were a proud people, tall, chitinous, with eyes that saw heat and thought in pulses. They ruled a wide stretch of the galactic rim, and they did not like surprises, especially not ones shaped like ancient human warships. The derelict was sleek, blackened by time but unbroken. Its hull bore no markings, yet its design was unmistakable, human, impossible. The last confirmed human vessel had been vaporized during the collapse, when Sol's sun flared and swallowed its inner worlds. Or so the records claimed. Vor sent a probe. It approached the ship slowly, scanning, listening. Nothing. Then, without warning, the ghost ship lit up. Lights blazed along its spine. Engines hummed to life, not with fire, but with a low, resonant thrum that vibrated through subspace. The probe went dark. A moment later, a transmission burst across every frequency the Cathari used. It was audio only, crackling with static spoken in a language long dead. "This is the Odyssey. We are returning." The words repeated 3 times, each time in a different human dialect. Some guttural, some soft, all alien to Cathari ears. Then silence. The ship's lights dimmed again, but its engines remained warm. It was waiting. Vor ordered full retreat. He sent an emergency burst to the High Conclave on Keth Prime. Within hours, the news spread like wildfire through the coalition. A human ship, alive, after 3,000 years? Most dismissed it as a hoax, a glitch, or a trap laid by the Vorn, a rival faction known for deception. But others remembered the old warnings, the myths, the stories of how humanity didn't just die, they disappeared, as if the universe itself had swallowed them whole. On Keth Prime, in a quiet archive buried beneath crystalline spires, a young xenolinguist named Rael heard the transmission. She wasn't supposed to. She was just a junior analyst assigned to translate dead world artifacts. But she had spent years studying human fragments, scraps of poetry, broken data chips, a child's toy found in a derelict station. She believed humanity had been more than conquerors or victims. They'd been dreamers. And dreamers left echoes. When she heard "we are returning," her hands shook. Not from fear, but from certainty. This wasn't a trick. This was real. The High Conclave met in secret. They voted unanimously the ship was too dangerous. It would be quarantined. No one would board it. No contact. It would be studied from a distance until deemed safe or destroyed. Rael disagreed. She tried to speak at the lower council, but they laughed. "You chase ghosts," an elder hissed. "Humanity is ash. That ship is a tomb with a voice," but Rael couldn't let it go. That night she stole a scout vessel, a small, fast craft named Mothwing. She bypassed the patrol grid using old maintenance codes she'd memorized from forgotten logs. No alarm sounded. No one noticed her leave. She flew alone toward the edge of known space, toward the ghost. 3 days later, she found it. The Odyssey hung in the void, silent again, but glowing faintly like a coal not yet cold. Rael approached slowly, heart pounding in her chest. Her ship's sensors showed no life signs, no weapons active, no traps, just stillness. She docked manually, using an old human-style airlock protocol she'd reconstructed from fragments. The hatch opened with a sigh of ancient hydraulics. Inside, the air was stale but breathable, filtered somehow after all this time. The corridors were clean. Too clean. No dust, no decay. The walls shimmered with a faint blue light, pulsing like a slow heartbeat. Rael stepped inside, her boots clicking on the metal floor, her breath fogged in the cold air. She found no bodies, no skeletons. No signs of struggle, just empty rooms, sealed doors, and strange symbols etched into the walls. Not human script, but something older, smoother, almost organic. In the central chamber, she discovered a circular room with a domed ceiling. In the center floated a sphere of dark crystal, humming softly. When she touched it, images flashed in her mind, fleeting, chaotic. A city under violet skies, people running, a flash of light so bright it burned the world white. Then silence, then stars, but wrong stars, stars that blinked in patterns no natural sky should make. She pulled her hand away, gasping. The vision left her trembling. Back in her scout, she tried to send a message to Keth Prime, proof that the ship was more than metal. But her comms fizzled, static. Then for a single second, the same voice returned. "This is the Odyssey. We are returning." This time it sounded closer, as if it knew she was there. Outside, the stars seemed dimmer, farther away. Rail checked her nav charts. They were unchanged, but something felt off. Like the universe had taken a breath and held it. She knew then that the High Conclave was wrong. This wasn't a tomb. It was a message, and maybe, just maybe, a warning. But before she could decide what to do next, her sensors blared. 2 ships approached, fast-armed Vorn markings. They'd intercepted her stolen signal. They wanted the ghost ship for themselves. Rail looked at the Odyssey, then at the incoming warships. She had minutes, maybe seconds. She made her choice. She sealed the airlock, powered down her scout, and ran back into the human vessel. If the Vorn wanted a fight, let them find an empty ship. She would hide inside the ghost and learn its secrets before anyone else could take them. As the Vorn ships closed in, the Odyssey's lights brightened once more. Not in warning, not in fear, in welcome. Rail moved through the silent halls of the Odyssey, her breath loud in the stillness. The Vorn ships circled outside like hungry birds, scanning, probing. She kept low, avoiding open corridors, pressing herself into shadowed corners whenever a new pulse of sensor light swept through the hull. The ship felt alive, not in the way a living thing breathes, but in the way a storm waits before it breaks. Every step she took echoed too clearly, as if the walls were listening. She found a small room near the ship's core, tucked behind a sealed door that opened only when she placed her palm on a smooth panel. Inside, the air was warmer. A soft glow came from the floor, pulsing gently like a slow heartbeat. Strange symbols lined the walls, curved flowing shapes that reminded her of water or wind, not the sharp angles of Ketheri script. She touched one, and for a moment she saw flashes again. A woman holding a child under a red sky, a tower of glass collapsing into dust, a voice whispering, "Don't look back." She pulled her hand away quickly. This ship remembered. It carried ghosts not just in name but in memory. Outside, the Vorn grew impatient. Their comms crackled through the Odyssey systems, harsh guttural commands in their native tongue. They demanded surrender. They claimed salvage rights. They threatened to tear the ship apart beam by beam. Rail stayed hidden. She knew the Vorn, they were ruthless. If they found her, they'd kill her or sell her to the highest bidder. But if they boarded the Odyssey, she wasn't sure what would happen. The ship had already shown it could defend itself. When the Vorn probe had neared it days before, the ghost ship had torn the machine apart without firing a single weapon. It had simply twisted space around it. Now, as the Vorn warship Iron Maw locked grappling beams onto the Odyssey's hull, the human vessel reacted. The lights in the corridor flared white. The floor trembled. A deep hum filled the air, rising in pitch until it vibrated in Rail's bones. Through a nearby viewport, she saw the Iron Maw shudder. Its hull warped, bending inward like soft clay. Metal screamed. Then, with a flash of impossible light, the Vorn ship split in two. Not from an explosion, but from something deeper, something that bent reality itself. The pieces didn't drift apart. They vanished, swallowed by a ripple in space that closed behind them like a wound healing. Silence returned. Rail stood frozen, heart hammering. The Odyssey hadn't fired. It hadn't moved. It had just rejected the intrusion. She knew then that this ship was not built for war. It was built for something else, something older, stranger. And it was protecting itself, protecting its secrets. With the Vorn gone, she dared to explore deeper. She followed the hum to the heart of the ship, where a chamber opened before her like a flower blooming in reverse. In the center floated a single pod, clear and smooth, filled with a pale blue liquid. Inside lay a man. He looked human, pale skin, dark hair, eyes closed as if in sleep. Wires and thin filaments connected him to the pod, pulsing with faint light. His chest rose and fell slowly. He was alive. Rael approached carefully. The pod hissed as she neared but did not attack. A screen flickered to life beside it, showing symbols she almost understood. She recognized a few from old human medical logs: vitals, neural activity, stasis depth. This man had been asleep for a very long time. She pressed a hand to the glass. "Who are you?" she whispered. The man's eyes opened. Not slowly, not groggily. They snapped open, sharp, alert, filled with 1,000 years of waiting. He stared right at her, though the pod was still sealed. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Then the pod began to drain. The liquid receded. The filaments retracted. With a gasp, he sat up. Rael stepped back, ready to run. But he didn't move aggressively. He just looked at her, his face lined with exhaustion and something deeper. Grief, maybe, or guilt. "You're not human," he said, his voice rough from disuse but clear. He spoke in standard trade tongue, the common language of the galaxy, but with an old accent, one Rael had only heard in archives. "I'm Cathari," she said. "My name is Rel." He nodded slowly. "I'm Elias, captain of the Odyssey." He looked around the chamber as if seeing it for the first time. "How long?" 3,000 years, she said softly. "Humanity is gone. Everyone thinks you're extinct." Elias closed his eyes. A single tear traced his cheek. "We didn't go extinct," he said. "We left. To save you all." Rael didn't understand, but she listened. Elias explained between ragged breaths. Long ago, humanity discovered something beyond the edge of known space. A boundary they called the Veil. It wasn't a place, but a layer between realities. And something lived on the other side. Something hungry. When it began to bleed through, Earth scientists tried to seal it. They failed. Cities fell. Minds broke. In desperation, the last of humanity made a choice. They would cross the veil themselves, not to escape, but to hold it shut from the inside. Their consciousnesses became part of the barrier, woven into its fabric like threads in a net. The Odyssey was the last ship to leave. Its mission: wait, watch, and if the veil ever weakened again, return to warn the galaxy. "But why now?" Rael asked. Elias pointed to the ceiling. "Because it's happening again. The veil is tearing. The fractures are spreading. That's why the ship woke up. It sensed the cracks." As if on cue, the lights dimmed. A low groan echoed through the hull. Outside the viewport, a distant star flickered. Once, twice, then went dark. Not exploded, just gone, like someone had turned off a lamp. Rael felt cold. What happens when the veil breaks? Elias met her eyes. Everything ends. Not just life. Reality itself unravels. Time, space, thought, they all dissolve into chaos. They had little time. Elias, weak but determined, began reactivating the ship's systems with commands only he seemed to know. Panels lit up. Holograms bloomed in the air, maps of the galaxy but with strange distortions near the center. Near Sol. "The heart of the breach is still there," Elias said. "At the sun. That's where we must go." But they weren't alone. The Cathari fleet had arrived. Dozens of ships led by High Commander Vor himself. They'd tracked Rael's stolen scout. Now they surrounded the Odyssey, weapons charged. "Surrender the vessel." Vor's voice boomed through comms. "It is not yours to command." Elias looked at Rael. "They won't understand. They'll try to take it, study it, maybe even weaponize it. That would tear the veil wide open." "What do we do?" she asked. "We run." The Odyssey's engines roared, not with fire but with a shimmering distortion that bent light around it. The Cathari ships fired, but their beams passed through empty space. The ghost ship was already gone, leaping into a fold of space-time no other vessel could follow. As they shot toward the inner system, Rael watched the stars blur. She thought of her people, of the Vorn, of all the species who had forgotten humanity. They had no idea what was coming. Elias stood at the helm, hands steady now, eyes fixed on the path ahead. "You didn't have to stay," he said quietly. "I had to know the truth," she replied. He nodded. "Then you'll see it soon enough." Ahead, the sun glowed, but not with its usual yellow fire. It pulsed with streaks of violet and black as if infected, and around it the void shimmered like heat haze over desert sand. The veil was bleeding, and the Odyssey was the only thing standing between the galaxy and the end of everything. The Odyssey dropped out of its strange fold of space near the edge of the inner Sol system, and the sight made Rael's breath catch. The sun was wrong. It still burned, yes, but its light was stained with deep violet streaks like veins of poison spreading through gold. Around it, space itself seemed to ripple, as if reality were thin fabric stretched too tight. Stars behind the sun flickered in and out, not dying but blinking like faulty lamps. Elias stood at the ship's main console, his fingers moving over controls that glowed with soft blue light. He looked stronger now, as if the ship was feeding him energy or purpose. "The breach is growing," he said, voice low. "We're running out of time." Rael watched the sensors. Strange readings pulsed at the edge of detection, not ships, not asteroids, but distortions. Shapes that shouldn't exist. One moment empty space, the next a shadow that bent light around it, then gone again. "What are those?" she asked. "Echoes," Elias said. "Pieces of what's on the other side slipping through. They're not solid, not yet, but they're learning how to stay." He turned to her. "The Odyssey isn't just a ship. It's a key, built from human biotech and veil energy. It can reinforce the boundary, but only if we reach the Nexus. The Nexus? The heart of the original breach. Buried in the sun's corona. That's where humanity made their stand. That's where they vanished into the veil." Rael swallowed. "And what do we have to do there?" Elias didn't answer right away. He looked away, jaw tight. "Someone has to merge with the ship's core. Become part of it. Anchor it to the Nexus, hold the veil shut. Someone?" she asked, dread rising in her chest. "Me," he said. "It was always meant to be me." But Rael shook her head. "You're weak. You just woke up. Your mind might not hold." "I don't have a choice," he said sharply. Then softer. "Humanity gave everything. I'm the last echo of them. It has to be me." Before she could argue, alarms blared. The Kethari fleet had caught up. Not just Vor's ships, others too. News had spread. The Vorn survivors, the Sylth traders, even the quiet monks of the Outer Ring. They'd all seen the star vanish. They'd all felt the wrongness in space. And they'd followed the ghost ship, drawn by fear or hope or greed. Dozens of vessels now ringed the Sol system, weapons hot, comms buzzing with demands and threats. None of them understood. They saw a powerful artifact. A weapon, a treasure, not a last defense. "They'll try to board," Rael said. "They'll die if they do," Elias replied. "The Odyssey won't let them near the core." As if to prove his words, a Vorn frigate fired a boarding harpoon. The moment it touched the hull, the space around it twisted. The harpoon stretched, snapped, and the frigate's front third folded in on itself like paper in a fist. The rest of the ship spun away, dead, but the others didn't retreat. They formed a wall, blocking the path to the sun. Elias cursed under his breath. "They're forcing our hand," he turned to Rael. "There's another way, faster, but it's dangerous." "What is it?" "The ship can dive straight into the corona. Use the sun's energy to power the final sequence. But the heat, the radiation, even the Odyssey might not survive." "And us?" she asked. "We'll be inside the ship. If the shielding holds, we live long enough to finish the job. If not..." He didn't finish. Rael looked at the fleet ahead, then at the sickly sun behind them. She thought of her home, of the quiet archives where she'd first heard human songs. She thought of the child in the vision, running under a red sky. Humanity hadn't run to save themselves. They'd stayed to save everyone else. She made her choice. "Do it," she said. Elias nodded. He entered commands. The Odyssey turned, its nose pointing straight at the heart of the sun. Engines flared with that same strange light. Not fire, but something deeper, older. The ship shot forward, ignoring the hail of fire from the fleet. Beams passed through it like ghosts. Missiles detonated in empty air where the ship had been a second before. They plunged into the corona. Heat warnings screamed. Hull temperature spiked, but the Odyssey's skin shimmered, absorbing the fire, turning it into power. Inside, the lights dimmed, then brightened with golden energy. The walls hummed like a choir. Rael gripped a handrail as gravity shifted. She felt the sun's pull trying to crush them, but the ship held firm, carving a path through plasma and flame. Then they saw it. At the center of the corona, floating in impossible calm, was a sphere of pure darkness. Not a hole, not a void. It was a tear, a perfect circle where light bent inward and vanished. Around it, ghostly shapes moved, human shapes, faint, shimmering, woven into the fabric of space itself. They reached out, not in pain but in warning. "The Nexus," Elias whispered. The ship slowed. The core chamber opened before them. In the center floated the same dark crystal rail had touched before, but now it pulsed with violet light matching the sun's sickness. "It's breaking," Elias said. "The threads are snapping." He moved toward the core. "I have to go in," Rail followed. "You can't do this alone." "I have to." "No," she said firmly. "The veil doesn't just need a human. It needs a bridge. Someone who remembers what's out here. Someone who can tell the galaxy what happened." Elias stared at her. "You'd give up your life for a species that's been dead for 3,000 years?" "I'd give it up for the future," she said. "For everyone out there who doesn't even know they're in danger." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he nodded. "The core can take two, but it will hurt. More than you can imagine." "I know," she said. They stepped into the chamber together. The crystal flared. Light wrapped around them like vines. Pain shot through Rail's body, not burning but unraveling. She felt her thoughts stretch, her memories spill out into the ship, into the veil. She saw Earth's last sunrise. She heard a mother's lullaby. She felt the weight of 3,000 years of silence. Outside, the fleet watched in horror as the Odyssey vanished into the sun's heart. Then a pulse of pure white light erupted from the corona, silent, fast, washing over every ship, every planet, every living thing in the system. For one moment, every mind in the fleet saw the same thing, a hand reaching out from the darkness, not to pull them in but to hold the door shut. Then silence. The sun returned to its normal gold. The violet streaks faded. The ripples in space smoothed out. The breach was sealed, but the Odyssey was gone, and so were Elias and Rail, or so it seemed, far away. On a quiet moon orbiting a nameless planet, a young Cathari child looked up at the night sky. One star twinkled brighter than the others, and for just a second it sounded like a whisper. Two voices speaking together. "We are still here." The silence after the pulse was deeper than any silence before. The Cathari fleet hung in orbit around Sol, engines cold, weapons dark. No one spoke. No one moved. Every being aboard every ship had felt it, the touch of something vast and ancient, not cruel, not kind, but necessary. The white light had not burned. It had shone, and what it showed left them hollow and changed. High Commander Vor stood on the bridge of his flagship staring at the sun. It looked normal now, steady, golden, quiet. But he knew better. He had seen the visions, the running child, the falling towers, the faces of humans not as monsters or myths but as guardians who chose to vanish so others could live. His mandibles trembled. He had come to claim a weapon. Instead, he had witnessed a sacrifice. On the Vorn command vessel, the warlord Krell tore off his armor and knelt on the deck. He had spent his life chasing power, believing strength was the only truth. Now he understood. The greatest strength was to hold the line when no one would ever know your name. Across the fleet, decisions were made in silence. No one tried to scan the sun. No one sent probes. They all knew the Odyssey was gone, and so were the two who had flown it into the heart of fire. But not everything was lost. On a small science station orbiting Mars, long abandoned, its systems running on backup power, a single console flickered to life. Dust fell from the ceiling as ancient fans whirred awake. A screen lit up, showing lines of text in clean, simple script. It was not a message from the past. It was new, fresh. Written in real time, it read, "The veil holds, but it is tired. Watch the stars. Listen for the song. No one was there to see it, not yet." But the station began broadcasting the message on every open channel, repeating it in every known language, even those not yet spoken. Far beyond Sul, in the cold, dark between galaxies, something stirred. Not the hunger that had bled through before. This was different, slower, softer, like a breath after a long sleep. The veil was not just sealed, it was healing. And it remembered the two who had given themselves to mend it. Back in the Sol system, the fleet began to disperse. Not in shame, but in purpose. The Cathari High Conclave received Vor's full report. For the first time in centuries, they called an emergency council with the Vorn, the Sylth, the Outer Monks, and a dozen smaller factions. They did not argue over territory or technology. They spoke of memory, of duty. They agreed on one thing. The story of humanity would not be forgotten again. They created the first accord, a pact to protect the truth. to teach it, to watch the stars not with fear but with gratitude. But while the galaxy turned toward peace, something else moved in the shadows. Deep in the ruins of old Earth, beneath layers of ice and ash, a machine woke up. It had been buried for 3,000 years, powered by geothermal heat and the slow pulse of the planet's core. Its purpose was simple: monitor the veil, report any weakness, and if the veil ever broke again, send a signal. Now its sensors twitched, not because the veil was breaking, but because it was changing. The pulse from the sun had not just sealed the breach, it had altered the veil's nature, made it aware. And in that awareness it had reached out. The machine sent its signal, not to the stars, but to a place no one knew existed. A hidden station, drifting in the Oort cloud cloaked in ice and silence. Inside, rows of stasis pods lined the walls. Each held a human, not dead, not dreaming, waiting. These were the last of the true humans, those who had refused to merge with the veil, who had chosen to sleep instead in case the galaxy ever needed them again. The signal reached them. One pod hissed open. A woman sat up, her eyes clear, her breath steady. She looked around, confused at first, then focused. She walked to the control panel, her bare feet silent on the cold floor. She saw the message from Mars. She saw the records of the Odyssey's final flight. She saw Rael and Elias vanish into the sun. She touched the screen, her fingers trembling. "They did it," she whispered. But then she saw something else. Data from deep space. Stars blinking out, not randomly but in a pattern. A rhythm, like a heartbeat. Or a call. Her blood ran cold. The veil was holding. But something on the other side had noticed the sacrifice, and it was answering. She activated the station's comms, sent a single word on a tight beam toward Seoul: "Prepare." Then she woke the others. Pod after pod opened. Men and women stepped out, stretching limbs unused for millennia. They gathered in the central chamber, faces grim but ready. They had hoped never to be needed, but the galaxy had called. They powered up the station's hidden drive, a human design older than the Odyssey, built not to fight but to flee. Or to find. Their mission was clear: follow the pattern of the blinking stars, find what was calling, and decide if it was friend, or the true enemy that had waited in the dark all this time. As their ship lifted from the ice, silent and swift, the woman looked back at Earth one last time. "We thought we were the last," she said. "But maybe we were just the backup." In Sol system, the Cathari Vorn ships were gone. Only a few science vessels remained, mapping the changes in space-time, recording the new calm. On the Mars station, the message kept repeating: "Watch the stars. Listen for the song." And if anyone had been listening closely, they would have heard it. A faint melody woven into the static of deep space. Not human, not alien, something in between. A song of warning and hope the veil was safe, for now. But the universe was larger than anyone knew, and the silence had only just begun to speak. The song came softly at first, like wind through broken glass. No one heard it clearly, not at first. The science teams in the Sol system recorded it as background noise, a strange harmonic ripple in the cosmic microwave echo. But the humans aboard the hidden station, now named Wayfarer, knew better. They had grown up with songs like this, songs their ancestors used to calm the veil, to speak to what lay beyond without waking it. The woman in command, named Lyra, stood at the bridge window as the ship slipped past Neptune's frozen rings. Behind her, the last of humanity, 23 souls, worked in quiet focus. They were not soldiers. They were scientists, engineers, poets even, chosen not for strength but for balance, for the ability to listen. The blinking stars had led them far, beyond the galactic arm, into a region of space so empty it had no name. Here the song grew louder, not in volume but in meaning. It carried images, a spiral of light, a door made of shadow, a hand reaching not to take but to offer. "We're being called," said Joran, the station's oldest, his voice rough from centuries of silence. "Not by the hunger, by something else," Lyra nodded. "The veil didn't just seal the breach. It changed. And whatever is on the other side," it noticed. The Wayfarer slowed as it neared the source, a point in space where no star should be, yet light gathered like water in a bowl. There, floating in perfect stillness, was a structure, not built, grown, smooth curves of silver and black pulsing gently with the same rhythm as the song. It looked like a seed, or an eye, no weapons fired, no alarms sounded. The structure simply waited. Lyra gave the order. Open a channel. Use the old tongue, the one before the collapse. A young man named Tile typed the command. The ship sent out a single phrase spoken by Lyra herself. We remember. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the structure opened, not with doors or hatches, but by unfolding like a flower blooming in reverse. Inside light swirled, not white, not colored, but something beyond sight. And from it stepped a figure it had no true shape. One moment it seemed human, the next like a cluster of stars, then like flowing water. But its presence was calm, patient. It did not speak with sound. It spoke with feeling, pressing thoughts gently into their minds. You held the line, it said. You gave your silence so others could sing. Lyra stepped forward, though she was still inside the ship. Who are you? We are the Watchers, came the reply. We live beyond the veil, not as enemies, but as keepers of the balance. The hunger you feared was not us. It was a sickness, a tear in the fabric that let chaos through. Your people saw it. They stopped it. Now the veil is whole, and it listens. Why call us now? She asked. Because the galaxy remembers you, and memory is a kind of life. You do not need to hide anymore. The figure extended a limb that shimmered like starlight. Behind it, the structure pulsed brighter. Within its core, Lyra saw faces, Elias and Rael, woven into the light, not dead but transformed. They smiled, not with mouths but with warmth. You may join them, the Watcher offered, or you may return. The choice is yours. Silence filled the bridge. 23 hearts beat as one. Joran spoke first. We were meant to sleep until needed. But maybe our purpose was never to fight. Maybe it was to witness, to carry the story back. Lyra looked at her people. They had waited 3,000 years in the dark. They could wait longer, but the galaxy had changed. The Cathari, the Vorn, even the smallest insect folk of the dust belts, they all knew humanity's name now. They honored it. They taught it to their young. What good was hiding when the truth could heal? She turned to the Watcher. We will return. The figure bowed, a motion that bent space around it. Then it stepped back into the light. The structure folded closed, then dissolved into mist, leaving only the song behind, now softer, sweeter, like a lullaby. The Wayfarer turned toward home. Weeks later, it entered the Sol system not in secret but with lights blazing, comms open. Every ship in the system detected it. Panic flared, until the Cathari recognized the design. Ancient, human, real. Vor himself hailed them. His voice shook. Is it true? Are you them? Lyra answered. We are the last, but we are not the end. The Accord worlds gathered again, not in war rooms, but in open space. The humans of the Wayfarer shared their knowledge, not of weapons, but of the veil, of balance, of how to listen to the quiet places between stars. They taught the song, and slowly others learned to hear it too. Years passed. The first Accord became the Veil Pact, a union of species bound not by fear but by shared memory. Schools were built where children learned human stories alongside their own. Statues rose on 1,000 worlds, not of warriors but of Elias and Rael, hands joined facing the stars. And in the quiet hours, when the night was deep and the sky clear, people would look up and listen. Not for danger, but for the song. It never failed to come, faint, yes, distant always, but steady, a reminder that silence is not emptiness. That absence can be a kind of presence. That sometimes the greatest act is not to conquer, but to hold the line so others may live, and far beyond. In the place where light and shadow meet, the veil breathed gently, strong again, watched over by those who gave everything and those who finally came home.